No.
You know what I did think was incredibly soft? I don't know if it's
how
true.
do you steal a Tesla though?
Huh? Wait, so you think it is him?
No, I don't think it's him.
A Tesla?
I don't think it's him because he's been on tour.
People, it is not a drill. David's been arrested for murder, and now the video of the arrest has been leaked to TMZ. This is what I'm seeing. Okay, I've leaped out of bed.
7 months. That is how long Celeste Rivas Hernandez sat decomposing inside the front trunk of D4vd's Tesla before anyone was arrested. Now investigators have finally revealed the details that put him in handcuffs, and what they found is worse than anything that leaked online. Before we get into what the investigators found and why it matters, you need to understand who Celeste Rivas Hernandez actually was. Because the way this story gets told online, she sometimes gets reduced to just a detail in D4vd's case. She was not a detail. She was a real person with a real life, and she deserved so much better than what happened to her. Celeste was born on September 7, 2010, and grew up in Lake Elsinore, California, a small city about 70 miles outside of Los Angeles. Her family came from El Salvador. She was a young girl who her neighbors remembered as sweet and recognizable.
Met her, she was very lively, just like all giggly.
Someone who would come into the local store after school and buy chips and candy and soda like any kid her age would. The liquor store owner near her house told reporters she came in all the time and was not a wild child at all, just a regular girl from the neighborhood, the kind of person who barely registers to the world until the world loses her. Her home life was hard, though. Deputies from the Riverside County Sheriff's Office responded to calls connected to her family home roughly 11 times in a 13-month period between 2024 and 2025. Most of those visits were logged as minor, but the pattern tells you something about what her everyday life looked like. A boyfriend she had in middle school told reporters she talked about her home situation being difficult and said she wanted to run away. He said she did not feel like she was treated right. She did run away more than once, and each time the police or her family found her and brought her back, until the last time when she did not come back. The connection between Celeste and D4vd, whose real name is David Anthony Burke, is believed to go back to around 2021 or 2022, which would have made her somewhere around 11 or 12 years old at the time. He was 17 or 18, already building a following online through TikTok and through music he was making in his sister's closet in Houston. They reportedly connected through social media and possibly through gaming platforms like Fortnite, which D4vd himself has spoken about publicly as a place where he built a lot of his early audience and made friends online. She became a member of his official Discord server and was openly called his girlfriend by other people in that community. They had matching tattoos on their right index fingers, the word shh on both of them. Photos of the two of them together came out publicly after her body was found, some showing them at events in Los Angeles. There is also an unreleased song attributed to D4vd that surfaced online after everything came out. It was titled Celeste and contained lyrics that people read as obsessive, referencing a girl with his name tattooed on her chest and darker themes throughout. His team never confirmed the song was real, but it spread widely and became part of the public conversation around this case. Separately, a music video he had already released publicly showed a body being dragged and placed inside a trunk, which, in the context of everything that followed, hit very differently once people knew what had been found in his car. Her mother confirmed to investigators that Celeste had been seeing a boyfriend named David. A former teacher of hers came forward publicly and said Celeste had told people at school she met a rapper from LA and went to be with him, and that police had actually located her in Hollywood on one earlier occasion and brought her back home. People inside D4vd's own circle thought she was 19 years old, a college student at USC. They had no idea. She was reportedly carrying fake identification documents that presented her as an adult, which is how she was able to move through spaces where she otherwise would have been turned away at the door. The last time Celeste's family heard from her was around May 2024. She had already been officially reported missing since April of that year, when she was 13 years old. Investigators now believe, based on digital evidence and surveillance footage, that she was still alive into early 2025. The prosecution's theory, built from the condition of the body when it was found and evidence gathered during the investigation, is that she died sometime in the spring of 2025, roughly 4 months before her remains were discovered.
According to the LAPD, this all started in September of 2025, and that is when officers responded to an impounded lot in Hollywood after there were reports of a foul odor coming from a vehicle, a Tesla. Now that vehicle, it had been towed days earlier after it was found on a street, abandoned, it seemed, in Los Angeles. Now police say that vehicle, that Tesla, it was registered to David Burke. Now when detectives searched that car, they found a body, and that body was later identified as a 14-year-old girl, her name Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Her body was in the front storage area of the Tesla. That's like the trunk of the vehicle, and it was in a state of decomposition, law enforcement said. Investigators have said that Celeste may have been dead for weeks before she was discovered.
On September 8, 2025, a worker at a Hollywood tow yard followed a foul smell to an impounded Tesla and opened the front trunk. Inside were 2 black bags. The first one contained a severely decomposed head and torso covered in insects, and the second was severed arms and legs. The car was a 2023 Tesla Model Y, registered to David Anthony Burke. It had been sitting unused on Bluebird Avenue in the Hollywood Hills since late July, got a parking ticket at the end of August, and was towed to the impound yard on September 3rd. The body had been inside it for an estimated several weeks, and the day before that discovery, Celeste would have turned 15 years old. LAPD Captain Scott Williams later pushed back on early media reports claiming the body had been frozen or that Celeste had been decapitated. Neither of those things was true. What was true was that her remains had been cut apart and placed into those 2 bags and left in that car in the summer heat on a public street while D4vd went on tour. Now here's the part that explains why it took almost 2 years to make this arrest and why prosecutors believe the case they have built is as strong as they say it is. Because this was not the police making a quick move on thin evidence. LAPD spent nearly 20 months pulling threads from every corner of D4vd's life, his home, his devices, his social media, his finances, and every person who had been close to him during the period that mattered most to this investigation. When the Tesla was found and the body inside it was identified, detectives moved fast. On September 18, 2025, LAPD executed a search warrant on the Hollywood Hills home where D4vd had been living, a 4-bedroom rental that his manager Josh Marshall had leased for around $20,000 a month. Investigators used luminol to test for blood throughout the property, went through the drains, and walked out with laptops, electronics, and multiple bags of evidence. Within days of that search, D4vd and Marshall broke the lease and moved everything out, which drew its own wave of attention online. The landlord then separately hired a private investigator named Steve Fisher, who went through the property independently and became one of the most vocal outside voices in this case. Fisher said that from surveillance footage taken on July 29, 2025, he had identified the last person seen driving the Tesla before it was left abandoned on Bluebird Avenue, and that he passed that information directly to LAPD detectives.
So I think that they'll be able to piece together the movement of the vehicle, and along with the vehicle's own systems, whether even if he didn't have Sentry mode enabled, the car will still capture that GPS data of when it was started and stopped, and where it moved in the last time it was turned off, and it'll also show how many passengers were in it because the seats measure the weight for airbag reasons. So I think there'll be a lot of data garnered.
He also told outlets that a high-temperature burn cage capable of reaching 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit was found at the property, though it appeared to have gone unused. Fisher maintained for months that investigators knew more than they were saying publicly, and that the footage of whoever moved that Tesla last was a critical piece of the timeline.
We had been hearing evidence in the case, including Burke's reported travel to the Santa Barbara area of California during the spring of 2025, and a search of the Hollywood Hills property where he was reportedly staying, and reports of a high-heat burn cage found at that location.
By November 2025, LAPD officially classified the case as a murder investigation, and an LA County grand jury was brought together to start hearing evidence. A grand jury is different from a regular investigation because it has the power to force people to testify under oath, even people who would rather say nothing. And prosecutors use that power aggressively. D4vd's manager was called to testify, and his label executives were brought in. A close friend of D4vd's named Neo Langston refused to show up and was arrested in Montana and extradited back to California to appear before the grand jury. When investigators are going across state lines to bring back a reluctant witness, that tells you everything about how seriously they are taking a case. D4vd's own family in Texas was subpoenaed, meaning they were legally ordered to appear and testify. His parents and his brother went to court to try to fight those subpoenas, and they lost in the Texas courts. A stay was eventually granted while they continued appealing, but the point stands. Prosecutors believed the people closest to him had information that mattered, and they used every legal tool available to get it. All of that grand jury activity ran from November 2025 into early 2026, and then in February 2026, documents from the Texas court proceedings became public. Those documents confirmed officially that D4vd was the named target of the grand jury's murder investigation, with one count of murder being examined. That was the first time the public had confirmation of exactly what investigators were working toward.
We are learning tonight that the singer known as David is apparently the target of a grand jury investigation looking into the death of a teenage girl who you may remember was found dead in his car last year. New court documents show police found the victim in a severely decomposed state, her dismembered body in the front trunk of the Tesla. And the documents say David was away on tour when the car was found. I want to get right to Chloe Malas now. Chloe, walk us through some of these new documents, because apparently David's father is being asked to testify to the grand jury.
Hallie, that's right. I mean, this is incredibly significant because obviously, like you just said, last year is when the remains of this 15-year-old girl were found in the trunk of David's Tesla while he was on tour, and he's never been charged or arrested in connection to this apparent murder. But now in these new documents obtained by NBC News, we see that he is the target of this grand jury investigation. And we know that family members of his have appeared before a grand jury earlier this month on February 11th. And, you know, when a grand jury convenes, this is something that's highly secretive. You never know typically when the date is going to be. And that's when the grand jury listens to evidence brought by the state's prosecutors, and they decide whether or not to bring charges. And again, he has not been charged with any crime in connection to this teen's murder. NBC News has reached out to his legal team for comment, and they have not responded to us yet on these documents. But again, incredibly significant, because this is the first time that we've now learned that officially prosecutors are looking at David as the target for this grand jury investigation. Hallie?
Meanwhile, D4vd had already started making some moves that caught people's attention. In September 2025, right around the time his home was being searched by police, he transferred the property deeds to 2 houses he owned in the Houston area over to a trust in his mother's name. On the surface, moving assets into a trust is not illegal on its own, but the timing, right after a body connected to him was found and right as police were searching his home, made people look twice. Legal commentators pointed to the O.J. Simpson situation as a reference point, noting that someone can be found not guilty in a criminal court and still lose everything in a civil lawsuit if the victim's family sues. If Celeste's family ever brings a wrongful death case, those assets become relevant. The defense walked into this fight with big names on their side. Blair Burke, Marilyn Bednarski, and Regina Peter,
3 of the best-known criminal defense attorneys in Los Angeles were already representing D4vd before the arrest. After he was taken into custody on April 16th, they released a statement saying, "The actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death. There has been no indictment returned by any grand jury in this case, and no criminal complaint filed. David has only been detained under suspicion. We will vigorously defend David's innocence." The key argument they are leaning on is the sealed autopsy. The official cause of Celeste's death has never been publicly confirmed because LAPD obtained a court order in November 2025 to seal the full autopsy report, protecting the details of the investigation from going public before trial. The manner of death is officially listed as undetermined due to the level of decomposition. Without a confirmed cause of death on the public record, the defense can argue that prosecutors cannot prove murder specifically. One of the figures people keep asking about outside of D4vd himself is a woman named Aisha Collins. She's been described in various reports as someone who was close to D4vd during the period leading up to the arrest, possibly a romantic partner and someone who traveled with his tour. In late 2025, she came out with one public statement, posting on the Reddit community that had formed around this case. She said she had met Celeste once for about 5 minutes and that she genuinely did not know the full story of who Celeste was or how young she really was. But the detail that hit the hardest was what she said about the moment she directly questioned D4vd. According to Aisha, after she saw a missing person poster for Celeste and went to him about it, he showed her multiple fake ID documents belonging to Celeste as proof that she was older than she appeared. The deception was not just something that was happening out in the world with strangers who had no reason to look closely. It was happening with people in his own inner circle, people who were around him every day, traveling with his tour, living in his world. Aisha said she believed him at the time because she had no reason not to. She ended her statement by saying she was working quietly for justice, and that was the only time she planned to speak publicly on the matter. Investigators have also separately noted that Celeste was known to carry multiple fake IDs that presented her as an adult, which is consistent with exactly what Aisha described happening right in front of her.
LA County District Attorney's Office told them they're aware David was arrested. They say the case is expected to be submitted to the Major Crimes Division, where prosecutors will evaluate the evidence to decide if charges are warranted.
There's also a conversation happening right now about the people who publicly went to bat for D4vd in the weeks right after the body was found, before any real details had come out. Multiple streamers and online personalities recorded themselves saying on camera that there was no way he could have done anything, that he had been on tour, that the car was probably stolen, or he was being framed.
Talked about the situation
With David?
Yeah,
Yeah, he didn't do it.
he's not a murderer.
No.
Thank God, bro, because I was still gonna listen to his music. I was just worried that I'd be an asshole if I did.
No, listen, he didn't do it. He literally performed the next day. If he was a suspect, the police would have been after him. He's not a suspect.
He's not just escaping the police clutches.
No. And I'm going to perform. We're going to perform on the 20th, me and David.
So let me get this straight. You support homophobic people and murder. Got it.
Nice one, bro. Nice one, bro.
You're performing with them?
Yes.
Is that your first time performing? No, you did.
I did my own concert.
I saw that one.
So,
Period.
you think David did it?
Do I think he's a murderer?
Yeah.
Can't rule him out.
Can't rule him out?
Can't rule him out.
Damn. No way. No.
You know what I did think was incredibly soft? I don't know if it's
how
true.
do you steal a Tesla, though?
Huh? Wait, so you think it is him?
No, I don't
how
think
do you
it's
steal
him.
a Tesla?
I don't think it's him because he's been on tour.
One of them said plainly on a live stream that D4vd did not kill anybody, and that if he was genuinely a suspect, the police would already be coming for him.
No, listen, he didn't do it. He literally performed the next day. If he was a suspect, the police would have been after him.
Those clips are being replayed everywhere now. The same voices that were loud in his defense are now much quieter, and their audiences are asking the obvious questions about why they rushed to protect someone's image before a single fact had been confirmed. It is worth paying attention to that pattern because it shows exactly how celebrity protection works and how hard it makes it for the truth to get through when it needs to. What matters most on the legal side right now is where this case actually stands. D4vd was arrested on April 16, 2026, and has been sitting in jail without bail since the day they put cuffs on him. The case was scheduled to land in front of the LA County District Attorney's Major Crimes Division on April 21st, where prosecutors would go through it all and decide whether to file formal charges and what those charges would be.
Today, I am announcing the charges against David Anthony Burke, the musician known as David, spelled D4vd, in connection with the brutal and horrific murder of Celeste, a 14-year-old at that time. These charges include the most serious charges that a DA's office can bring. That is first-degree murder with special circumstances. The special circumstances being lying in wait, committing this crime for financial gain, or murdering a witness in an investigation. These special circumstances carry with it, along with the first-degree murder charge, a maximum sentence of life without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. The determination on whether or not the District Attorney's Office will seek the death penalty will be made at a later time. Before I get into the actual charges, and there are additional charges against Mr. Burke, including continuous sexual acts, lewd and lascivious sexual acts with an individual under 14 years old, and mutilating a human remains of a body. Before I get into the description of these charges and their seriousness, I want to look at this as a parent. I am a parent of 3 children, and a parent's nightmare is a situation where your daughter goes out one night and never comes back. On April 23, 2025, has been alleged by the complaint, Celeste, a 14-year-old at that time, went to Mr. Burke's house in the Hollywood Hills. She was never heard from again. On September 8, 2025, as alleged in the complaint, Miss Celeste's remains, her dismembered and decomposed remains, were found in 2 bags inside of a front trunk of a car registered to Mr. Burke.
A grand jury spent 5 months gathering evidence with D4vd as the named target, pulling in witnesses from every part of his life and locking their testimony in under oath so nobody can walk it back later. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani explained it clearly on Law and Crime. The reason they ran the grand jury for that long before making the arrest was specifically so that witnesses inside D4vd's circle could not change their stories once the case went to trial. That is not an investigation that is still figuring things out. That is a prosecution that believes it is ready.
The DA wanted to lock in some members of David's inner circle to make sure that they cooperate, they don't go sideways at trial, and I think that's what they were waiting on before they ended up arresting.
There is no death penalty in California, so that's off the table completely no matter what charges eventually get filed. What is on the table, if a murder conviction comes through with the right circumstances attached to it, is life in prison without parole. D4vd's attorneys are going to push back on everything, and they have both the skill and the money to run a serious defense. This almost certainly goes all the way to a jury trial, because there's nothing meaningful to offer as a deal when the maximum sentence is already life. His team has already signaled their strategy, which is to attack the sealed autopsy and the officially undetermined cause of death. That is their real argument, that without a confirmed cause on the record, the prosecution cannot prove murder the way they are claiming they can. And sitting behind all of it, on the other side of every legal filing and every press statement and every court date that is coming, is the Rivas Hernandez family. They buried Celeste at Queen of Heaven Cemetery in Rowland Heights on October 6, 2025, a private ceremony that the most of the world did not see. Just family dressed in black and a white casket being carried under a tent, 1 month after she was found in that trunk. Her brother Matthew has been honest about how hard this has been, saying they lost their girl and that they did everything they possibly could to find her while she was still alive. Her mother described their home as quiet and broken. They have reportedly been looking at a civil lawsuit against LAPD as well, over what they felt were delays in the investigation, separate from what the criminal courts decide. D4vd is legally presumed innocent until proven guilty and will have every opportunity to make that case in court. But Celeste Rivas Hernandez deserved somebody to fight for her the way these prosecutors are fighting now. That fight is finally happening. We will keep you updated. What do you think? Do you think D4vd really murdered Celeste? Let me know in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.